Thank you, Acting Speaker, and I rise on this side of the House to proudly support the Inquiries Amendment, Yoorrook Justice Commission and Records and Other Matters Bill of 2024. And in doing so, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, live, learn and work, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and particularly all of my parliamentary First Nations colleagues, beginning with the member for Geelong for her fantastic contribution from the outset. It's a privilege to work alongside you in relation to these matters, and it was an even bigger privilege to have joined you at Darebin Parklands last week as we progressed the Landmark Treaty. My friend Sheena Watt in the other place and Senator Jana Stewart in the Australian Parliament, of course. I acknowledge members of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, including Uncle Andrew Gardner, the representative of these traditional lands in the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. And in doing so, of course, I rise to express my pride in being part of a Victorian Labor government that's leading the nation when it comes to progressing the aspirations of the Uluru Statement from the Heart through voice, treaty and truth. We've proudly established the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, the first state in Australia to have created such an independent and democratically elected body that represents traditional owners of country and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Victoria. We've established the first formal Truth-Telling Commission through the Yoorrook Justice and Truth-Telling Commission, helping us to understand the full history of Australia, the one that dates back more than 60,000 years, way before the arrival of the First Fleet in 1788. And we're also proudly the first state in Australia to be progressing a genuine treaty with the First People through the creation of the Treaty Authority and, as I said, through the commencement of formal treaty negotiations on 21st of November last week. But at the heart of each of these landmark initiatives, Acting Speaker, is the principle of self-determination, which is all about listening to First Nations people, building a genuine and inclusive First Nations-led partnership on health, wellbeing, socio-economic issues and the issues that impact them and their communities. And it's about helping us to continue facilitating that self-determination by enabling and upholding First Peoples' choices when it comes to the recording, storage, preservation and access of First Nations records via the Yoorrook Justice Commission that we are here today for this bill. And I'd like to just point to the Liberals here, Acting Speaker, because it does sadden me, genuinely saddens me greatly that they are opposing this bill. Because when it comes to First Nations policy, it's long been the Liberal National Party that have sadly always opposed genuine reconciliation with our First Nations people. How can we forget John Howard, who refused the apology to the stolen generation? Those iconic scenes over the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the disgrace of Peter Costello years later to say his regret in being able to do something at the time to change the Liberal Party position. Shameful, shameful. Peter Dutton, who led the charge against voice, treaty and truth and the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Shameful. And today we see the Victorian Liberal Nationals continuing in that disgraceful fashion. They're opposed. They've withdrawn bipartisan support for voice, treaty and truth in this state. And their conduct in relation to this bill is another sad step in that regard. But I also note who's not speaking on this bill.
Who's that?
The member for Lowan.
Thank you, Speaker. It appears that the member is reading a document. I ask him to table that, please.
I ask the member for... Excuse me. I ask the member for Pascoe Vale, are you reading a document?
I'm actually referring to handwritten notes that I've had to take down live stream while the opposition have in real time said they're opposing this bill. And Acting Speaker, I also note...
Just a tick, I must rule on the point of order,
okay,
so thank you. The member has said that he is referring to notes, so I'll ask him to continue.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. And I also, in referring to my proudly handwritten notes, as the Liberal National Opposition have come to the party to advise they're opposing this bill very sadly, note who hasn't been speaking on this bill. I know it's the Nationals member for Ovens Valley who's spoken. It's the Nationals member for Mildura who's also spoken. The Nationals member for Morwell has spoken. But my question is, where are the Liberal MPs in this debate? Where is the member for Hawthorn? Where is the member for Sandringham? Where is the member for Bryden? Where is the member for Kew? They claim to be the progressive Liberals. You've heard them all, the member for Hawthorn previously with Raph Epstein on Drive at Home 774 radio, having those progressive conversations. Well, I dare him, Acting Speaker, to go on Raph Epstein or the ABC radio this afternoon after their disgraceful conduct and their positioning on this bill. But it's also as we head towards the Green Liberal contest in Paran that I'd love to see what the Liberal positioning is going to be in relation to that campaign. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. Because the reality is, despite all the rhetoric over here, the reality is this bill is actually nothing new. And if the members opposite had bothered to do their homework, they would know that all of the measures contained in this bill already exist in legislation. They're already contained within the existing Public Records of Victoria Act. They're not new. This is nothing new that we're talking about here. All we're talking about is elevating the views and the wishes of the First Peoples Assembly in relation to the Yoorrook Justice Commission. That's all we are talking about doing. Because under current Royal Commission and public inquiry guidelines, any person who appears before an inquiry can request to have their information, their evidence, their submissions, their personal, private or confidential information to be designated as restricted. And that genuinely is utilised and exercised for people giving evidence at Royal Commissions when it comes to matters such as historical sexual abuse matters. Very sensitive matters indeed here, Acting Speakers. Matters as they relate to the Mental Health Royal Commission. And now, through the Yoorrook Justice Commission, as asked by the First Peoples Assembly member for Ovens Valley, we are elevating the opportunity for their stories to be also preserved and restricted, consistent with existing acts. That's already
A point of order for the member for Mornington.
Just like to draw attention to the state of the chamber.
Mordiella, can you please sit in your seat? Excuse me. I rule that there is a quorum present and the member for Pascoe Vale will continue.
Oh, another case, Acting Speaker, of the Liberal Nationals. Another case, Speaker, of the Liberal Nationals not being able to count their numbers. It goes to show whether it's quorums or in the party room, they can't count. They can't count. But you know what? They only listen to what they want to listen to. And I want to draw the chamber, which has a quorum, to the comments of the member for Mildura. The member for Mildura, who kept talking about how she talks to Quantaf. And I respect that and I acknowledge that. But if you talk to Quantaf, which is a respectable, reputable Aboriginal First Peoples organisation, and you're willing to listen to them and their views, why doesn't the member for Mildura want to listen to the views of the 33 democratically elected First Peoples Assembly First Peoples Assembly members who have actually asked for this bill to be brought forward? Why choose to listen to one organisation and not the entire democratic body of traditional custodians of the lands in Victoria that we have proudly established that have called for this bill? Why wouldn't the Liberal National Party actually call for and listen to the advice being provided by the Yoorrook Justice Commission? Why are we only supposed to listen to Quantaf if you follow the logic of the member for Mildura? We're listening to the entire First Nations community on this side and the actual democratic body. But it's also shameful. It's going to be absolutely shameful, to say the least, Acting Speaker, that in the week that the member for Berwick shows up to a protest where neo-Nazis also show up, they seek to divide in this chamber by opposing this bill.
I ask the member for Pascoe Vale to have his seat. The member for Brighton, on a point of order.
On a point of order, Acting Speaker, I call relevance. I don't know what kind of... I don't know what rubbish this member's speaking about, but it's not on the bill.
I ask the member for Pascoe Vale to come back to the inquiries amendment and continue your contribution about the Yoorrook Justice Commission records and other matters bill.
We could say we've got the member for Brighton on the record when it comes to this bill, Acting Speaker. Now, I was just asking questions about where the Liberals sat on this bill, and now we know it's a point of order. That's the best they can do. A point of order with no substance to contributing positively to this bill at all. And another point of order.
The member for Brighton.
The member's just...
The member for Brighton will be heard in silence.
The member's just reflected on your ruling, Acting Speaker.
I will remind the member for Brighton, I'll remind the member for Pascoe Vale to continue his contribution for the last 15 seconds.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Look, in conclusion, I commend this bill. It's all about supporting that aspiration from the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Voice, treaty and truth. We are walking proudly with our First Nations people and the Wurundjeri people of these lands on which this parliament is built.